A freezing night, a man just trying to get home, but in his parking spot, a broken down van. Inside, a woman and two kids with nowhere left to go. He could walk away, he could call the cops, but what he does next will change all of their lives forever. Stay till the end, because sometimes it's not the roof that makes a home, it's the heart that opens the door. Before we dive in, drop a comment below with the city or country you're watching from, and tell us, would you have let them in or closed the door and walked away? The rain had just started to fall when Mark pulled into his apartment complex, the wipers squeaking against the windshield in a tired rhythm. It was past 10, and the weight of another double shift clung to his shoulders like wet cement. He rubbed his aching neck and steered toward his usual parking spot, only to slam the brakes. Someone was already there. A rusty white van sat crookedly in space 34, his space. Its back windows were fogged, and one of the rear tires looked half deflated. Mark frowned, annoyance bubbling in his chest. He had enough going wrong. Late rent, unpaid bills, and a daughter who asked too many questions with eyes too much like her mother's. Now this. He parked further down and walked over to the van, rain dripping from his jacket collar. As he approached, he noticed movement inside. A faint glow from a flashlight flickered. He raised a hand and tapped the glass. At first, no one responded. Then, slowly, the door slid open with a creak. A woman, early 30s, soaked hoodie clinging to her frame, peeked out, her eyes wide with fear. Behind her, two children sat bundled in mismatched blankets, staring silently. One was maybe 5, the other no older than 8. Mark's breath caught. He was expecting a squatter, maybe a drunk. Not this. "Sorry," she said quickly, voice trembling. "We'll move. The engine died. I just needed somewhere dry for them to sleep. Please, don't call anyone." Mark opened his mouth, but no words came. He glanced at the kids again. The younger one clutched a teddy bear missing an eye. The older girl avoided eye contact, her face streaked with dirt and rain. His gut twisted. He should call the building manager, or the cops, or something. Instead, he exhaled slowly. "There's a diner down the street. You'll be warmer there." "We have no money," she whispered. He looked away, jaw tightening. Everything in him screamed not to get involved. He had his own problems. A 12-year-old daughter upstairs, likely waiting with reheated leftovers. But he also knew what it meant to be left out in the cold. After a long pause, he stepped back. "You and the kids, come inside. Just for tonight. My place isn't much, but it's dry." The woman stared at him, stunned. "You'd let us?" Mark nodded once. "I don't make a habit of it, but the rain's not letting up, and those kids need sleep." As she gathered her children and followed him through the complex, Mark couldn't shake the feeling that this one moment, a tired man's reluctant kindness, was about to change everything. Mark unlocked the door to his modest apartment and pushed it open, flicking on the dim overhead light. The place smelled faintly of old coffee and laundry detergent. His daughter, Lily, sat cross-legged on the couch, a math book open in her lap and earbuds in. She looked up, confused, as the door opened wider and a woman and 2 unfamiliar kids stepped inside behind her father. Her eyes narrowed. Mark cleared his throat. "Lily, this is temporary. They needed a place to stay for the night." Lily stood slowly, glancing between her father and the strangers now huddled in their living room. "Why are they here?" she asked, her voice cautious but sharp. "I'll explain later," he said quickly. "Can you help find some blankets?" She hesitated, then disappeared down the hallway with a sigh, the kind that let him know he'd be answering questions all night. Mark gestured toward the couch. "You can sit. I'll grab towels. You're soaked." The woman nodded silently, pulling the children closer to her. They looked exhausted, like they'd been running for a long time. Mark returned with towels and passed them out, then set a pot of water on the stove without thinking. The hum of the kettle was the only sound for a moment. Finally, he broke the silence. "What's your name?" She looked up. "Emily." He nodded. "Mark, that's Lily. She's 12. You?" "My son, Caleb. He's 5. And that's Anna. She's 8. Lily returned with the blankets, dropping them onto the couch without a word before retreating back to her room. Mark watched her go, the tension in his chest growing. He knew how this looked, bringing strangers into their home, especially ones who arrived in a broken-down van. But there was something in Emily's eyes that struck him, a tiredness deeper than sleep could fix. As Emily tucked the children in, Mark leaned against the kitchen counter, his thoughts drifting to his own past. He remembered the night his wife left, just disappeared. No note, no warning, just an empty closet and a crying baby. He hadn't spoken of it in years, not even to Lily. But somehow, watching this woman now, shielding her kids with her whole body, stirred something he hadn't felt in a long time: recognition. He handed her a mug of warm water and sat on the edge of the armchair. "You running from someone?" Emily hesitated, then nodded. "Not someone, something. A life I thought I could fix. But it only got worse." Mark didn't press. He knew that tone, the edge of confession, the fear of judgment. "I stayed too long," she whispered, hoping it would change. "But one night I looked at my kids and realized I was teaching them how to survive, not live." They sat in silence for a while after that. Outside, the rain softened to a drizzle. Inside, the walls held stories that no one was ready to speak aloud, yet. But something had shifted. They were no longer strangers, just shadows beginning to show shape under a fragile, flickering light. The sun filtered weakly through the kitchen window the next morning, casting a pale light on the mismatched mugs and the half-eaten cereal bowls left on the table. Mark sat across from Emily, his arms crossed, watching as her 2 kids helped Lily feed the cat. It was strange, almost peaceful, if you ignored the fact that only 12 hours ago they were total strangers. Emily's eyes were heavy with exhaustion, but something about the safety of a roof and a warm floor had softened her. Mark finally broke the silence. "You don't have to tell me everything, but I'd like to understand." Emily stared into her mug. 3 years ago, I had everything. A husband who adored our kids, a home, stability. He died in a car crash on his way to work. Just like that, everything unraveled. Her voice didn't tremble, but her fingers tightened around the cup. She explained how the bills piled up faster than she could keep track, how she tried to hold on to her job while juggling childcare, how one late rent payment became 2, then 3. And finally, a knock on the door from the landlord, followed by the sound of their things being dumped on the curb. She and her kids had been living in their van for over a month now. Shelters were full. Friends had stopped answering. Mark's jaw tightened. He remembered that spiral. His wasn't caused by death, but abandonment. and the helplessness felt the same. But just as he opened his mouth to respond, Emily said something that made him freeze. "You know, I think we've met before. Years ago, when I worked the night shift at St. Mary's. You came in with your daughter. She was maybe 2, high fever, panicked dad." Mark blinked. A memory surfaced, blurry and buried, but there. A nurse with tired eyes and a calming voice, wrapping Lily in warm blankets while he held her tiny hand and tried not to cry. "That was you?" Emily nodded. "I never forgot. You looked like you were carrying the whole world on your back, but you never complained. Just kept holding her like she was your anchor." Mark let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. It was like a circle had closed, quietly, unexpectedly. In the living room, Lily was giggling as Caleb made silly faces. Anna showed her how to fold a paper crane. The 3 of them laughed like they had known each other forever, as if hardship had somehow made their language the same. Later, Lily sat beside Mark, her face thoughtful. "Dad," she asked, "are they going to stay long?" "I don't know yet," he answered gently. She looked down. "It's just, we always talk about helping people, but we never really do it. Until now." Mark smiled softly. "It's not always easy." She nodded. "But maybe it's right." In that moment, Mark realized something had shifted, not just in his home, but in his daughter. She was starting to understand what it meant to see someone's pain and not look away. And maybe that was the most important lesson of all. The sound of a basketball bouncing in the street mixed with the low hum of traffic as Mark stood on his porch, watching Emily's kids play hopscotch with Lily. For a moment, it felt like a neighborhood again, like laughter could drown out struggle. But not everyone saw it that way. Word had gotten around. Some neighbors waved politely. Others crossed the street. And a few just stared, long, hard, and full of judgment. It wasn't long before the building's landlord came knocking. "You can't just take in strays, Mark," Mr. Halpern said, his voice low but sharp. "This place isn't zoned for a halfway house." "They're not strays. They're people," Mark replied, jaw tight. "I don't care what they are. If they're not on the lease, they're trespassing. I'll give you a week to sort it out, or I'll start the eviction process." The door shut with a hard click. Mark sat in silence that night, running numbers in his head. He barely scraped by as it was, and now he had 3 more mouths to think about. But something about the weight in Emily's eyes, or the way Lily smiled more easily now, made walking away feel impossible. So he did something reckless. He offered Emily a job. "I know it's not much," he said, handing her a spare work shirt from the garage. "But I could use help organizing the books, ordering parts, and you need a restart." Emily blinked, surprised. "You'd hire me?" "I trust you," he said, "and I've seen what you're capable of when things fall apart. That's someone I want on my team." She smiled, a bit of the fire returning to her eyes. At the shop, things weren't easy. The other mechanics whispered when she walked in. One even quit, grumbling something about charity cases. And the rumors in town spread fast, that Mark had moved some mystery woman into his place, that she was trouble, that it was irresponsible. But Emily showed up early. She learned fast. She cleaned the books, organized the chaos, brought coffee, and managed to calm even the angriest customers. And when she smiled at her paycheck, small but honest, Mark felt something shift. One afternoon, as Emily scrubbed oil off her hands, Mark found a note pinned to his office door. It wasn't signed. "Watch your back. Not everyone's buying the hero act." He crumpled it up without a word. But that night, as he sat across from Lily, Emily, and the kids sharing mac and cheese on mismatched plates, he realized something. When you open your door to someone else's storm, the rain might soak you too. But maybe, just maybe, it was worth it. The sky was steel gray, and flurries had begun to fall when the knock came. Mark opened the door to two uniformed officers, their breath visible in the cold. One held a clipboard. The other scanned the hallway behind him. "We got a report. Unregistered tenants living here," one said. "Building code violation. We'll need to speak with everyone in the apartment." Mark's heart dropped. Behind him, Emily froze mid-step, cradling a mug of coffee. The kids looked up from their coloring books. Lily stood completely still, clutching her backpack straps like they held the world. Emily stepped forward slowly. "It's me," she said, voice steady. "I'm the one you're looking for." Mark moved to speak, but she raised a hand. "I'll go," she whispered, eyes glistening. "You've already done enough. I won't let you lose your home because of us." The words hit harder than any eviction notice. Mark shook his head, but before he could argue, she was already gathering her coat. The kids were confused, their mom moving like someone used to running. When the door shut behind her, the silence screamed. But not for long. Lily's voice broke the air. "Dad, you can't just let her leave." Mark blinked. "I'm trying to protect you. Our home." "No," Lily said, her voice trembling. "You're trying to protect something that doesn't even matter anymore. We had a house before Mom left. But we didn't have this. We didn't have someone who showed up." He looked at her, really looked, and realized she wasn't pleading for charity. She was pleading for family. Outside, snow blanketed the streets. Emily walked fast, coat clutched tight, eyes stinging from more than just the wind. She didn't know where she was going, only that she couldn't stay. She wouldn't be the reason someone else suffered. "Emily!" Mark's voice rang down the street. She turned and saw him running. No coat, just a hoodie, footprints disappearing behind him. He stopped in front of her, breathless. "You're not going anywhere." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You'll lose everything." "I already lost too much," he said. "I lost years trying to be safe. You and those kids. This feels right, even if the world doesn't get it." She stared at him, shaking. He stepped closer, placed a hand on her shoulder. "Come home. Not for charity, not for pity, but because we're better together." Behind them, Lily and the two kids stood at the door, watching through the snowflakes. Emily looked back at the warmth glowing from the apartment windows, then forward, at the man who risked comfort for compassion. And in that moment, she didn't run. That night, the table was full again. The plates were still chipped, and the heater still rattled, but laughter echoed off the walls like it belonged there. In the weeks that followed, something changed in the building too. One neighbor brought over groceries. Another helped repair the broken van. The ones who whispered before now waved. Mark stood at the doorway one evening, coffee in hand. watching Lily help Emily's son with homework while Emily folded laundry, smiling. Home, he realized, isn't where you sleep. It's who you let in, even when it's risky. And sometimes, the heart has to decide before the world ever understands.